Hey everyone, Sean here in Guangzhou. Today, I'm here at the Guangzhou Auto Show to give you all a first-hand look at what's really happening inside China's EV industry. And if your impression of what's happening in China's EVs is low cost and low quality manufacturing, then this video and this place can and will change your mind. This is what is driven by China's innovation engine, and I'm going to break it down for you in today's video. Based on my 15 years of experience living and working in China, as well as my experience inside Chinese tech companies like Huawei and Vivo, I'll be walking you through how Chinese EVs are fueled by Chinese innovation, how they're expanding overseas, and some of the key areas they still need to improve. So let's get into it, and I hope you like the video. One of the biggest misconceptions about Chinese EVs is they can only win overseas at low price. And while it's true that many EV companies from China started their overseas journey by focusing at selling at the lowest possible price overseas, the real story behind Chinese EVs is the speed at which they're innovating and the fact that they're very tech-focused and they're building their EVs just like they build their smartphones. With Chinese EVs, you see incredibly fast iteration, over-the-air updates, new features being pushed every few weeks, and a level of responsiveness to their users that you don't necessarily see from overseas automakers. Chinese EV makers have adopted a consumer electronics mindset. They innovate quickly, they learn quickly, and they push out new software updates faster than many overseas automakers would take to schedule a meeting. Another huge advantage for Chinese EV makers is vertical integration, when they control the battery, the motors, the software, the manufacturing. They don't have to wait on suppliers, and they can move that much more quickly than their competitors overseas. And then there's the design freedom. We don't see Chinese EV makers weighed down by legacies that overseas automakers are subjected to that might affect their branding, their design choices, etc. We see Chinese EV makers making bold choices with their interiors, the giant screens, AI co-pilots, gaming features, and other things. They're able to really think and innovate and decide not what a car was before, but what a car could be in the future. Second, let's talk about overseas expansion. While the Guangzhou Auto Show is billed as a domestic event, it's also a preview of which Chinese EV makers are preparing to go overseas and how seriously they're taking that challenge. Because China is no longer a low-cost, low-quality manufacturer. It's now in Export 2.0. They're exporting technology, lifestyle design, and full-stack ecosystems. Look at what BYD is doing in Europe, or how Leapmotor is partnering with Stellantis. These companies aren't just dipping their toes in the global market. They're taking step by step to create their own global footprint. And many overseas consumers are responding positively to new Chinese EVs because they get more tech, more comfort, and more features at the same price point as overseas brands, if not a lower price point altogether. These cars are like consumer electronics you can sit in, and the user experience is fundamentally different. At the same time, we also see some countries pushing back against Chinese EV exports. For example, we've seen 100% tariffs against Chinese EVs in places like the USA and the UK. But in my mind, and based on my experience working with Chinese tech companies, it's not really about the price. In the end, it's about how fast China's innovation ecosystem moves and how many countries and companies overseas simply were not prepared to deal with it. Now, here's the important bit. Chinese EV products are strong. Some are even world-class, able to compete with the best of the best on a product basis in overseas markets. But for Chinese brands wanting to successfully expand overseas, just having a great product isn't nearly enough for the long term. One of the biggest challenges I see for Chinese EV brands, and this is something I've seen consistently throughout my career in China tech, is internal alignment. Overseas partners and teams won't get the support they need in order to make those sales and build those relationships. Messaging will not be aligned. and different departments will be sending different information. And without clear internal alignment, building trust in overseas markets will be very difficult for Chinese brands. Another big gap for Chinese EV brands overseas is brand storytelling. Most Chinese EV brands, as well as tech brands, lead with their product specs. But overseas buyers don't want to buy specs. They want to buy emotion, meaning, and consistency. Product specs can certainly help make the decision, but they're not the final say. To win the trust of overseas consumers, Chinese EV brands are going to have to be able to explain clearly what their brand is, what it stands for, and why overseas consumers should put their trust in them. And this type of thinking and communication is still relatively new for Chinese EV brands and tech companies going overseas. Finally, there's the issue of after-sales support. Overseas auto buyers are going to want warranties, transparency, clear communication, and consistent service from Chinese EV makers. And this is an area where Chinese EV makers are still building their capabilities, but it's also very important because this is where trust is going to be built day by day with overseas buyers. So that wraps up our quick look at the Guangzhou Auto Show and where the Chinese EV industry is really heading. You can see the innovation everywhere. You can see and feel the ambition to go global, but you can also see some of the areas that still need work. Chinese EVs show what happens when Chinese innovation meets China's speed. The next challenge for these brands is building trust at global speeds, which is much slower than China's speed and varies from market to market. If you're interested in having more insights about Chinese companies, tech, and global expansion, feel free to subscribe to my YouTube channel and follow me on LinkedIn. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.